Hello, my name is Vegas, and today I'm going to be defining entrepreneurship for my Entrepreneurial Mind class. Alright, so we're going to start off with my definition of entrepreneurship, which is innovation of an idea, product, or service, as well as building a business around it. Now, I picked my words very carefully. When I thought about my definition, I definitely wanted to make it more of an operational definition, what I think is the essence of entrepreneurship. And I think it kind of combines both the ideas of innovation and like maybe invention even with like business, scaling that up, scaling that idea, service, or product up to the masses. I think combining both of those together kind of produces that essence of entrepreneurship. But now let's talk about scholarly definitions. So the word entrepreneurship is a French word, but I was surprised to learn it is literally just a word that describes the action to undertake, which was coined by French economic thinker Rich Cantillon in the 18th century. It was really interesting to me that what we think of entrepreneurship in the West, we take it as a French word that means, to scale a business, to, think of ideas, whereas it just means to undertake in the French definition. But here's some other scholarly definitions, which include some operational definitions as well as just some ideas. Van Kataraman says, how, by whom, and with what affects opportunities to create future goods and services are discovered, evaluated, and exploited, which again, kind of falls a bit in line with my definition. The goods, discovering goods, services, that spirit of invention, and then evaluating and exploiting it, which would be scaling and building a business. At least that's what I take from that. Peter Drucker, he has many definitions and things to say about entrepreneurship in general. So I just summed it up with, entrepreneurship is about taking risk. He has a lot more to say, but I just like that quote because, of course, I believe you need to take risk in order to innovate. You need to upset the equilibrium, as we saw in the micro theory of entrepreneurship. And Elliott et al. Says, the process of identifying potential business opportunities and exploiting them through the recombination of existing resources or the creation of new ones to develop and commercialize new products and services. This was coined in 2020, so I think it sums up a very good operational definition for entrepreneurship today, how we see it as today. And, talking about today, let's talk about some modern entrepreneurs. Now, here's two that I look up to. A lot for their mindset, because they're not just businessmen. Even though, you think of someone like Mark Zuckerberg, he was once the world's youngest billionaire, and, has tens, hundreds of billions at this point. But he doesn't think of entrepreneurship about money at all. Mark Zuckerberg says entrepreneurship is about creating change, not just creating companies. He said many times that the goal, especially with making Facebook, he wanted to connect people. It wasn't about making money, and because Facebook was one of the first, companies of its kind and kind of revolutionized social media, it's very clear to see that he was very invested in that change. And nowadays, he's very invested in virtual reality as well as AI. But I think the virtual reality space more so because he will throw as much money as he wants at that idea because he believes in it. Similarly with Alex Hormozy, he says entrepreneurship is more of a battle of wills than a battle of intellect, which he doesn't discuss anything about, ideas, innovation, business, money, none of that. He thinks of entrepreneurship as like a mindset. You don't have to be smart, but you have to be determined, you have to persevere, you can't just give up and he makes a lot of educational content about succeeding as an entrepreneur. Because I think it is harder than ever before to be an entrepreneur, and a lot of people give up. So to have someone like Alex Hormozy, try and encourage new people and teach them the lessons that he's learned as a successful entrepreneur. He's made a lot of mistakes, so it's good for him to kind of help the next generation of entrepreneurs get started. Now, the comparison between scholarly definitions as well as the modern definitions. First, I think it's important to note that the two entrepreneurs I chose, they are very successful, they've made their money, and their definitions are more about inspiring people and, saying something that is, very quotable that someone could say, oh yeah, there's this great quote from this successful businessman. Whereas, scholars, people who write journal articles, educators, their definition of entrepreneurship is going to be more of a operational definition. They care more about defining what is entrepreneurship. Let's break it down word by word, so we can, talk about it, discuss it. Defining things is very important in, educational, scientific communities, because you need to know exactly what you're talking about. So a lot of the differences come with the actual definitions they both use, but the similarities, I think, is they both revolve around businesses. While Mark and Alex's definitions were more of like a mindset, they both have successful businesses, like multiple businesses. They both had like ideas, products and services that they wanted to, scale up and create a business and make money out of. Alex, starting in the fitness industry, he started his own gym and then a service to help revitalize other gyms. And now he just has a website a company called acquisition.com, where he, acquires different companies, helps scale them up, fix what's going wrong with them. And, Mark, social media guru, but also now invested in the AI and virtual reality spaces. They both have these services, these products. So while they, might want to seem cool and inspiring and encouraging to the people looking up at them, the people who admire them, they, they had an idea, they made a business out of it, they're creating value from resources. So I think that's, important to note that two different types of people, two different types of definitions, but the same sort of action in reality. So, why do these definitions exist? I talked a bit about the scholarly definitions already. It's important to operationally define not just entrepreneurship, but pretty much any word you can think of, because it lets you have a common ground, a common idea to discuss what is entrepreneurship. So operational definitions are just important in general. But I also think the individual definitions by the modern entrepreneurs that I chose are important, because it does inspire people. These quotes people think of are, encourage people to, maybe I can start my own business. Maybe I can take this idea I have and become an entrepreneur. Let's talk about the history of entrepreneurship. It just started off as a word coined by a French economist, but for thousands of years, we probably have entrepreneurs everywhere. You think about, simple merchants, thousands of years ago selling silk or fruit, or, farmers can be considered entrepreneurs. The modern day entrepreneurs creating an idea and creating like a multi-million, billion-dollar business isn't just the essence of the word. We've had entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship around for far longer than the word existed. But the current state does feel like it's, one guy with like an idea, like that kind of bounces off something else, just creating like a startup company, getting tons of investment, scaling it up, and then trying to sell that for like a big amount of money to bigger companies. That's what a lot of people think of as, you know, the current state of entrepreneurship. They think of take an idea, scale it up, you know, get your money. That's kind of what a lot of people want when they think about entrepreneurs. Personally, I'm more of like a problem first guy. I think it's important to not care about the money or the potential. Just, you know, have the passion of what you're doing. Like, you know, what problem are you solving? How will it benefit society? Not how much money will I make from it. And the future of entrepreneurship, obviously, I can't see into the future, but I would hope it would become easier. A lot of ideas. It's hard to come up with new, fresh ideas since ever since really the invention of the printing press and now the internet has kind of accelerated the sharing of ideas and, you know, building of products, services. Obviously, there's new breakthroughs in technology every single year, but it feels harder and harder to come up with something original because, you know, there's 8 billion of us on this planet. But, you know, entrepreneurship isn't just, you know, creating something new. I think it's about improving, innovating, and everywhere you look, there's something that can be improved on it, whether it's, you know, like a local restaurant that you like, but you see, okay, there's, you know, something they're not quite doing right, I can do that better, or like a technology, a computer program. There is so much more, and I'm excited to where entrepreneurship will, you know, take us in the future. But to conclude, I think entrepreneurship, along with my definition, the scholarly definitions, and the my modern entrepreneur definitions, I think it's about innovating and just taking ideas and scaling it up to produce something that benefits society, that makes our lives better as you know, human beings. I think it's very important that even though it is very hard today to become an entrepreneur, it feels like you need a lot of money or you need some great big idea, when in reality you just need, you know, the determination. I agree with Alex Hormozy a lot. You need the battle, you need the willpower to keep going and prove that your idea is worthy, and through enough determination you can make it work. But yeah, here are my references, and I hope you enjoyed my talk about entrepreneurship. I've been Vegas. Bye-bye.